Good morning, Negroes. How are we doing? Brought to you by Twitware, Doug Royce. Good morning. I like that. All right, folks, good morning, good evening, and good night. How are you? No, I'm not going anywhere. I just got here. It's 8:01 in the morning. Oh, goodness gracious. 21st of November, 2023. Thanks again for coming in, looking at me. I'm Doug Rice. I am Doug Rice. This is the Doug Rice Show by Twitware. As you can see, the gear is upon me. That's what I do. All right. Good morning. So last night, I guess we had a gunman open fire at Walmart last night. I mean, my goodness, what's going on here, man? I don't know. It's a bit of a quandary. Shall we take a look? I think we shall. I want to know what's happening, and so I'm going to share it with you. This is fresh news, and it came across my desk, if you will, I guess. Did it come across my desk? No. And it's a shooting from yesterday. Let's hear what they got to say. Whoa, no, I don't have the volume up. Let's hear what they have. Look at that, at least 4 injured.
The city of Beaver Creek, Greene County, Ohio, and began firing shots. In doing so, he injured 4 victims. The conditions of the victims right now is unknown, as they were all transported to area hospitals for treatment. BCI, the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, the FBI, and the ATF are all on scene assisting with the investigation. This time, we are not going to release any more information as the investigation is still ongoing. This has been an incredibly tragic incident. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the families of the victims, the responding officers, and everyone that was here this evening.
Well, folks, it is. Oh, thanks. News and appreciate you, Lester. It is an interesting time we are living in. That kind of caught me by surprise. I was a little bit shocked that, you wake up in the morning. Not really. I'm not shocked. Folks, we know that is the normal way of things. And I thought I would bring that to you by way of delivering a little bit of news. You know how we do it. Again, good morning. Today, you know what's happening over in the Middle East? It's a race war. That's what it is. It's plain, simple, pure, and pathetically a race war. Down in Argentina, they've just elected a far-right extremist, making Donald Trump look like a choir boy, has plans for that country. They've got right-wing white nationalism spreading across the globe in the form of the assertion of Jews who claim to be the chosen of God, who are literally, I think they're at 12,500 deaths for 1,500 people, of which, some of these people are still held hostage. Well, the 1,500 that are dead are not held hostage, but this is about white privilege. That's what this is about. All right. I don't know if you've been living under a rock. I know what they're telling you. I know what they're showing you. I know what they're expressing to you. But the fact of the matter is, this is white privilege. So today, we are going to go over an essay written by Francis E. Kendall, PhD, Understanding White Privilege. This is a very, very well-written piece. And though we've gone over it before, though we have delved into this topic at some length, we've never had it read. Again, we'll be having it read from the perspective of the individuals who possess the privilege. And there's a lot that Miss Kendall has to say. We're going to get to it, but do me a favor, folks. Visit twitware.com. Use the promo code TDRS to get 10% off any purchase. But also, if you would, look below and also see the giving URLs that are available. And we always begin with Cash App, certainly. This show is hanging on by a literal thread. I don't know what day might be the last day you see me, so enjoy as much of it as you might. All right, so while we, inspect this carefully, I'd like you to listen to all that Miss Kendall talks about regarding the privilege she possesses. And I want you to apply what you hear to the privilege being taken by the state of Israel in their treatment of folks that are olive-skinned, and the privilege taken by individuals in other countries, the privilege now being asserted by the vote and putting privileged people in privileged position to enhance more privileges. So let's understand the white privilege that is fueling all of this, because that is the key. They've tried to tell you in every respect that it's not about skin color, but I'll be damned if it isn't. So like, subscribe, share. Please listen to this. I think you may appreciate it. Here we go.
Understanding White Privilege by Frances E. Kendall, PhD. We need to be clear that there is no such thing as giving up one's privilege to be outside the system. One is always in the system. The only question is whether one is part of the system in a way that challenges or strengthens the status quo. Privilege is not something I take, and which therefore have the option of not taking. It is something that society gives me, and unless I change the institutions which give it to me, they will continue to give it, and I will continue to have it, however noble and equalitarian my intentions. Mine is Harry Broad, work clothes and leisure suits, the class basis and bias of the men's movement.
So Miss Kendall opens with a quote from Harry Broad. We need to be clear that there is no such thing as giving up one's privilege to be outside the system. One is always in the system. So it's an interesting take. I don't know that it relates to understanding white privilege, but Miss Kendall felt it important to include in her opening. So let's get to the meat of the matter, Miss Kendall. What is white privilege? Let's find out.
What is white privilege? Privilege, particularly white or male privilege, is hard to see for those of us who were born with access to power and resources. It is very visible for those to whom privilege was not granted. Furthermore, the subject is extremely difficult to talk about because many white people don't feel powerful or as if they have privileges others do not.
Isn't that an interesting observation? When you talk about white privilege, many of those who you might discuss with it who are white, many will deny that they even possess this privilege. But a privilege unused is not a privilege unowned. Just because you don't either have the intelligence, temerity, gonads, or whatever it takes to exercise white privilege in its extreme, and we know and we've seen that. That doesn't mean that you still don't possess it. You do. This is the explanation I believe we're after.
It is sort of like asking fish to notice water or birds to discuss air. For those who have privileges based on race or gender or class or physical ability or sexual orientation or age, it just is, it's normal. The Random House Dictionary, 1993, defines privilege as a right, immunity, or benefit enjoyed only by a person beyond the advantages of most. In her article, White Privilege and Male Privilege, Peggy McIntosh, 1995, reminds us that those of us who are white usually believe that privileges are conditions of daily experience that are universally available to everybody. Further, she says that what we are really talking about is unearned power conferred systematically.
Unearned power conferred systematically. That coming from that writer. Let me make sure we have it. White Privilege and Male Privilege by Peggy McIntosh, written in 1995. Of course, I'm going to encourage any one of us to look that up. It's interesting. She says that those of us who are white usually believe that privileges are conditions of daily experience. conditions of daily experience. They are universally available to everybody. And that is kind of the myopic stance you might have some who are white take regarding their privilege. They feel that it is available to everyone. It is not simply possessive of them, but interesting how she defines it, that it is actually unearned power conferred systematically. My God, that is a powerful, powerful statement. Let's continue. I like that.
For those of us who are white, one of our privileges is that we see ourselves as individuals, just people, part of the human race. Most of us are clear, however, that people whose skin is not white are members of a race. The surprising thing for us is that, even though we don't see ourselves as part of a radical group, people of color generally do see us that way. So given that we want to work to create a better world in which all of us can live, what can we do?
Well, let me stop there. Not all of you, my Miss Kendall, not all of you are interested in creating a better world. In fact, there are a vast majority of you now gaining traction, power, political influence that do not want to see a better world. They want to see a whiter world. And so that doesn't equate to a better world for folks like us. So I appreciate your sentiment, but I don't know. You might have to adjust that.
The first step, of course, is to become clear about the basics of white privilege, what it is, and how it works. The second step is to explore ways in which we can work against the racism of which white privilege is a cornerstone.
Good luck.
White privilege is an institutional, rather than personal, set of benefits granted to those of us who, by race, resemble the people who dominate the powerful positions in our institutions.
Oh, and it's as simple as that. I will read that. White privilege is an institutional rather than personal set of benefits granted, given to those who by race resemble the people who dominate the powerful positions in their institutions. And I want to really focus on that word resemble, because the resemblance is what brings to remembrance. You have to understand, the folks that resemble Negroes will get what Negroes get. And folks that resemble white folks will get what white folks get. And so that is a very important word to put there, resemblance, and the people who dominate the powerful positions in their institutions. Let's continue.
One of the primary privileges is that of having greater access to power and resources than people of color do. In other words, purely on the basis of our skin color, doors are open to us that are not open to other people. For example, given the exact financial history, white people in the United States are 2 to 10 times more likely to get a housing loan than people of color minus access to resources. Those of us who are white can count on the fact that a nation's history books will our experience of history.
Oh, did you hear that? That is, those of us who are white can count on the fact that a nation's history books will convey their experiences of history. That is more likely what she meant to convey. Very interesting admission.
American Indian parents, on the other hand, know that their children will not learn in school about the contributions of their people. All of us who are white, by race, have white privileges, although the extent to which we have them varies depending on our gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, age, physical ability, size and weight, and so on. For example, looking at race and gender, we find that white men have greater access to power and resources than white women do.
Sorry about that. It does what it does.
The statistics from the 1995 Glass Ceiling Commission show that, while white men constitute about 43% of the workforce, they hold 95% of senior management positions in American industry.
Now you need to examine that. You know, and I'm not focusing on the 43%. I'm focusing on the 95% of senior management positions in American industry. And you know what you'll get from them are all kinds of excuses for that 5% differential. And, you know, and I don't know about you, it's just kind of sick of hearing it. I'm sick of them grinning and cheesing in our face, talking about how everything is everything, all things are equal. You know, we're on equal footing. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps when this kind of statistic is slapping us in the face every day. 95%. Well, okay, bootstraps be damned.
Looking purely at white privilege, white women hold about 40% of the middle management positions, while Black women hold 5% and Black men hold 4%.
Did you hear that, folks? Did you hear the stat? What's wrong? Did you not did you not hear that? I mean, looking purely at white privilege, white women hold about 40% of the middle management positions, while Black women hold 5%. And of course, coming in at the rear, Black men hold 4%. Percentage difference, right? You still like this? I mean, is this your country? Honestly, is this a Negroes country? I don't think so.
Unless we believe that white women or African American men and women are inherently less capable, we have to acknowledge that our systems are treating us unequally. White privilege has nothing to do with whether or not we are good people. We who are white can be absolute jerks and still have white privileges. People of color can be the most wonderful individuals in the world and not have them.
Focus on what she's saying. This isn't about some abstract, ethereal, just you can't touch it. You can't. No. This is about attitudes. I know that she's speaking in such abstract terms, but this is about attitude, is what this is about. Okay, when you say something like that, the onus is on the person who is delivering the ill treatment. And I understand that you're trying to address it in some way that kind of gives you an offset skew so it doesn't attach to you. But these are your folks you're talking about. I hope you know that, Miss Kendall. Let's go.
Privileges are bestowed on us by the institutions with which we interact solely because of our race, not because we are deserving as individuals. While each of us is always a member of a race or races, we are sometimes granted opportunities because we, as individuals, deserve them. Often we are granted them because we, as individuals, belong to one or more of the favored groups in our society. At some colleges and universities, for example, sons and daughters of alumni and alumni might have lower grades and test scores than other applicants. They are accepted, however, because their parents graduated from the institutions. That is a privilege that the sons and daughters did nothing to earn. They were put ahead of other possible applicants who may have had higher test scores and grades because of where their parents had gone to school.
So now we have established what white privilege is. That was the opening salvo. And the closing comment of section 1, you know, we look at just the dynamics of let's examine the Bush family. So from Prescott Bush to George H.W. Bush to George Bush, the younger son, all went to the same schools, all went to the same rituals, skull and bones. And, you know, it wasn't a matter of grades or ability. It was a matter of who you know, who you are associated with. And that is intricately tied into white privilege in this instance, because we know right now they are attacking affirmative action that allows schools the opportunity to get the best and brightest from different demographics. But that's no longer the case. They're no longer having to really adhere to those rules. And so what we have been experiencing will only be worse, will only get worse. They are setting the stage to bring back the 1920s. Are you not paying attention to what they want? Are you not paying attention to who Donald Trump is upset with mostly? All Negroes. Donald Trump is set to get back into the office and express more of this white privilege and kind of turn the heat up on it. So it's very good that we understand exactly what it is. Now, the next section, and please like, subscribe, share, do all the things you need to do down there. The purposeful construction of white privilege. This is going to be a brief history on the purposeful construction of white privilege. This written by Francis E. Kendall. We're reviewing this information so that we too can be as up to speed as possible on the applications of white privilege. Here we go.
The purposeful construction of white privilege, a brief history. Often it is not our intent, as individual white people, to make use of the unearned benefits we have received on the basis of our skin color. Most of us go through our days unaware that we are white or that it matters. On the other hand, the creation of a system in which race plays a central part, minus one, that codifies the superiority of the white race over all others, minus, has been in no way accidental or haphazard. Throughout American history, white power holders, acting on behalf of our entire race, have made decisions that have affected white people as a group very differently than groups of color.
So understand what they are saying with that very, very powerful opening to the second portion, that on their behalf, a stage has been set to establish white privilege as the norm in this country. And while they walk amongst us unaware that this has been laid upon them, they utilize it on command and will then deny the possession of the privilege once the utilization has been completed. Pay attention to what this writer is saying, folks.
History is filled with examples of the purposeful construction of a systemic structure that grants privileges to white people and withholds them from others. The writing of the U.S. Constitution, which, in 10 articles, very intentionally confirmed the holding of Black people as slaves, as property. White people's believing that our destiny was to own the land on which we all currently live, even though that required forcibly removing the native people who had lived here for centuries.
Whoa, did you hear that one, folks? Yeah, boy, with one mouth they say they are destined to be here, they are destined to do all of these things. And with the other hand, they're murdering as many indigenous people they can to fulfill this prophetic intention that they've laid to. So it is a very interesting outlook to see that one of their own can speak so openly and honestly about their circumstances. Very, very interesting. White people believing that their destiny was to own land while they simultaneously murder the people that owned the land before they got here. And what sickens me is that sycophants and failures, losers like Donald Trump, call these pale, pathetic settlers. He calls them settlers. We just settled. No, just like what was done over in Israel, you are invaders. The Europeans that came from across the pond invaded and then called it settling. I'm sorry, I go there. I just don't like it. All right, let's continue.
Our breaking apart of Black families during slavery, sending mothers one place, fathers another, and babies and children yet another. Choosing to withhold from African Americans the ability to read so that they could not reproduce any of their culture or function well enough in our literate society to change their status.
I'm afraid we're going to have to go over that one again because maybe you don't understand what she just admitted. Let's do that one more time.
Our breaking apart of Black families during slavery, sending mothers one place, fathers another, and babies and children yet another.
Okay, so that's first. That's first. You understand where you are. You understand your circumstances. You understand what white privilege is. The ability to do that. That's kind of the first step. Let's see what's next.
Choosing to withhold from African Americans the ability to read. So
what? I'm sorry. What did you do? Maybe I missed that. What did you say, ma'am? I'm sorry. Say it again.
Choosing to withhold from African Americans the ability to read so that they could not reproduce any of their culture or function well enough in our literate society to change their status.
Now, notice she called it a literate society. Okay, and notice that the inability to read, the not allowing Negroes to read, teaching them to read. Look at what it accomplished, so that we weren't able to reproduce the culture. What about the culture frightens these people so much? I'm trying not to curse. My God, and so they wouldn't function well enough. You understand the sinister nature of these creatures? I don't care that she's admitting it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, admitting evil doesn't remove the evil from the admitter. Stop. Let's not give her too much credit. Plus, I mean, she's pissing me off. What do you want me to do? All right, let's continue.
The removing of American Indian children from their homes, taking them as far as possible from anything they knew, and 3, punishing them if they tried to speak in their own languages. The passing of laws that were created to maintain the legal separation and inequality of whites and African Americans, Plessy versus Ferguson. The making of politically expedient decisions by many, if not most, white suffragists to align themselves with white Southern men, reassuring them that by giving the vote to women, red white women, since at that time about 90% of the Black women lived in the South and were not by law able to hold property and thus vote, the continuation of white supremacy was ensured.
Now, I hope you folks caught that. I hope you're not here twiddling your thumbs. I hope you're paying attention to what they are admitting openly. There are a few of them that will admit it. Yeah, you hear this, brothers and sisters. Hear this. So you got white women, suffragettes, they want the vote, they want this, they want that, sure. And it seems the only reason it was acquiesced, the only reason they gave in, was to increase and continue white supremacy, to ensure that it continued. So the vote wasn't to empower white women. The vote given to white women was to empower the white race and give strength to white supremacy, which is what we are all under right now. So very, very interesting. Let's talk about immigration manipulation.
The manipulation of immigration laws so that people of color, particularly Chinese and Mexican, as well as European Jews, were less free to immigrate to the U.S. than Western and Eastern Europeans.
The question now for me is, who do these people think they are? Do you understand we have a class of individuals, and I believe they call themselves Anglo-Saxons, and they exclude from any beneficial thing all who are not them. That is who you are surrounded by. That is who Donald Trump is. That is who Donald Trump's supporters are. Individuals filled to the rim with white privilege, and it sickens me. Because if we delve deeply into the past of these creatures, we'd find some unusually demonic features. But I don't want to digress. Let's just hear the rest.
The removing of American citizens of Japanese ancestry from their homes and taking their land and their businesses as our own during World War II. The using of affirmative action to promote opportunities for white women rather than for people of color. It is important to know and remember this side of American history, even though it makes us extremely uncomfortable. For me, the confusion and pain of this knowledge is somewhat eased by reminding myself that this system is not based on each individual white person's intention to harm, but on our racial group's determination to preserve what we believe is rightly ours.
No, I'm not accepting that watered down drivel. And you can take those particular words that you wrote to codify yourself and keep you somehow, clean up here in your mental. Nah, dear. No, your kin, your ancestors, I'm pretty sure they weren't the bester. So please do not come at me with what puts you at ease regarding this circumstance, because I don't give a damn about your ease, lady. I want you to know that. Hell no. You can admit all day, it won't take away guilt.
This distinction is, on one hand, important, and, on the other hand, not important at all because, regardless of personal intent, the impact is the same.
Thank you.
Here are a couple of examples. For many years, it was illegal in Texas for Spanish-speaking children to speak Spanish at school.
Oh, did you know that? I did not know that. Why must they control everything? I wonder. What happens if they are no longer in control? We're going to find out soon. Trust that. Very soon.
This meant that every individual teacher and principal was required by law to send any child home for speaking his or her own language, whether the teachers or principals believed in the law or not.
That is a very good point she's making. That is a very good point. Do you understand how white privilege reinforces itself perpetually, in that they make rules that even if those who enforce them are in disagreement with, must enforce them anyway? And to me, the sinister nature of wanting people to turn into you, that's the most abhorrently vile exercise in this whole thing. It just bothers me. You want everyone to lose themselves and turn into you. For what purpose? I mean, all right, let's just go.
Based on the belief that people who live in the United States should speak English, mixed with racial bigotry against Mexicans, the law was passed by a group of individual white legislators who had the institutional power to codify their and their constituents' viewpoints. Once a particular perspective is built into law, it becomes part of the way things are. Rather than actively refusing to comply with the law, as individuals we usually go along, particularly if we think the law doesn't affect us personally. We participate, intentionally or not, in the purposeful construction of a system that deflates the value of one people's culture while inflating the value of another's. More recently, this same kind of thing occurred in a county called Georgia that was experiencing a large influx of Mexican immigrants. By saying that firefighters might not speak Spanish and would therefore not be able to find the grocery store that was on fire if the sign outside said tienda de comida, the county officials made it illegal to have store names in languages other than English.
Whoa! I mean, folks, this is the kind of history they want to hide from their children. Isn't this something? I need you to understand the attitudes of these beings, these creatures. I mean, you need to truly understand what is smiling back at you. Dig it. Just bothers me. I don't know. Continue.
However, the bakery, Obama Payne, was not asked to change its sign.
So in Spanish, you change the sign. If it's in French and it reminds you of your European personage, the sign may remain. Anybody, any Negro that, in my opinion, wants to stay in this country is insane. Yeah.
Presumably, the firefighters speak French better than they speak Spanish. As we see from these two examples, the patterns set in history are continued today. Not only in the ongoing pervasive and systematic discrimination against people of color in housing, healthcare, education, and the judicial systems, but also in the less obvious ways in which people of color are excluded from many white people's day-to-day consciousness. Think, for example, of how regularly you see a positive story about an American Indian or a Latina/O on the front page of the newspaper you read. How long would it take you to name 10 white heroes? Could you name 10 women of color, other than people in sports and music, who have made major contributions to our society? The freedom not to notice our lack of knowledge about people of color is another privilege that is afforded only to white people. All of us, including students of color, study the history of white, Western Europeans every day in our schools unless we take an ethnic studies course, or a course consciously designed to present the many other threads of the American experience.
Okay, as we take a break, pause for the cause. This is the Doug Rice Show, brought to you by Twidware, as you probably saw there. And I definitely am glad for you folks to be here. Please visit twidware.com, get 10% off all apparel, all skincare lineups coming up fairly quickly here. We're reviewing the writing of Frances E. Kendall, which is why the reader is in feminine form today. And what she's taking us through is a very good essay regarding the understanding of white privilege. And I think she's done a good job so far. I do. I hope that you can understand why I do this. I do this so that we can get not only from ourselves, our own writings. I read, books that we write regarding ourselves, but we need to get the perspective of the oppressors. Even those who may be open about all the oppressors have done, I give them no quarter. And the reason that is because opinions change, opinions vary. Under the right circumstances, under the wrong circumstances, it just appears to me that every last one of them is infected. I've not seen, not too many that I can say. I believe I got three that I might be, two maybe, that you could push the envelope to with, and as a black person, as a Negro, and they may not consider calling you the N-word, but there's very few. So what I don't accept is when, there's an open, honest discussion held by one of them that is the final say of their attitude. I will not just accept that, because again, I believe I can bring out the racist sentiment in nearly every white person that exists. Give me a shot. All right, so my name is Doug Rice. Thank you for coming in, tuning in to the Doug Rice Show. Hey, this is Frank. Very brisk conversation. We say it. That's what we do. That's what I do. I did this way, so that way. So we say it, and we say the quiet part out loud amongst ourselves. I want you to know this, Negroes. I'm not here discussing this with others. This is not a topic of conversation that I'm trying to have. I'm not trying to open or create a dialogue with anybody. I don't want you to get that idea at all. I'm for Negroes. I want Negroes to know everything they can about everything they do and everything they think about Negroes too. That's what I'm here for. So like, subscribe, share. If you like what you're looking at, support us down there. We're going to continue. Here we're going to continue with the privilege from conception. We're at about 40 minutes into this, and we're going to continue. And again, from Frances E. Kendall, Understanding White Privilege. Please again, like, subscribe, and share.
Privilege from conception.
Wait.
White people's privileges are bestowed prenatally. We can't not get them, and we cannot give them away, no matter how much we do not want them. For example, if I walk into any drugstore in the country that carries hair products, I can be sure that I will find something that was designed for my hair. Black hair products are much harder to find. Often African Americans have to drive for miles to buy what they need. Further, I know that when a Band-Aid box says fresh color, it means my skin color, not those of my Asian or Latina friends.
Stop. I have no idea why an Asian cannot wear a standard Band-Aid. Stop. I have no idea why a Latino cannot wear a standard Band-Aid. You need to pull back a little bit, baby, okay? Okay, the Band-Aids are created for skin not associated with melanin, all right? I'm sorry about that, folks. I just had to.
If, in an attempt to give back my privileges, I said to the drugstore clerk, I don't want the privilege of always being able to get shampoo for my hair when my black friend can't. The clerk would think I was nuts. What we can and must do is work daily to combat our privilege by bringing to consciousness others and our own, the system in which we are living. White people, taking racism seriously. Far too many of us who are white erroneously believe that we do not have to take the issues of racism seriously.
Now, here she's going to wax on philosophically, I'm sure, about what they can do to ensure that we are okay. I like the answer given by Malcolm X when one came and asked him what she can do to assist Negroes in their plight, and his answer was out of sight. Not a goddamn thing can you do. Sorry, I cursed once. Yeah, all right. Let's continue.
While people of color understand the necessity of being able to read the white system, those of us who are white are able to live out our lives knowing very little of the experiences of people of color.
And those that are white have very little interest in knowing the experiences of what black people of color go through in this country. They're not really interested.
Understanding racism or whiteness is often an intellectual exercise for us, something we can work at for a period of time and then move on, rather than it's being central to our survival. Further, we have the luxury of not having to have the tools to deal with racial situations without looking incompetent. I was working with a college at which senior administrators were trying to decide how to move forward with diversity intake. One of the vice principals said, "There are so many people who want diversity to fail." The conversation seemed theoretical and removed to me. What an odd thing to say. There are so many people who want diversity to fail.
What do you think that means, young lady? What do you mean? What do you mean? There are so many people that want diversity to fail. What that means, and I'm going to go ahead and tear into this a little bit, okay? Let me break it down for you like a fraction, all right? What that means is the terrified and scared European mass is just terrified of diversity. They don't want to be bred out of existence, which is exactly what it appears to be that's happening. I mean, and it's not the fault of those people they consider brown-skinned people of color. It's not their fault. They're just doing what people do. It's the fault of these individuals who claim they're vanishing. They're talking about not being replaced. You stopped screwing a while back. You stopped screwing. You're so self-centered, myopically focused on yourselves and what you can accomplish for yourselves and do for yourselves. That white privilege gripping you by the throats is cutting off your nuts. That's what's happening. And you're not procreating. Okay? So what you're terrified of is your cause. That's what you are scared of. And this diversity fear, just secret speak for I'm a Nazi. Okay? I'm an Aryan. I like white skin, blonde hair, and blue eyes. That is what people who are intent on diversity's fail mean by that. Are we good? All right, let's go. Is she gonna go? Is she gonna go?
Administrators were trying to decide how to move forward with diversity intake. One of the vice principals said, "There are so many people who want diversity to fail." The conversation seemed theoretical and removed to me. What an odd thing to say. There are so many people who want diversity to fail, with the attitude of, well, we tried, it was an interesting experiment. Now let's send all of them back to the countries they came from. Too bad, minus it was an exciting thought. If, instead, someone had said, there are so many people who want diversity to fail, I'm afraid we won't succeed. An action plan would be drawn up in a heartbeat and monitored daily to get the school back on track. Or would that be the response? Is there a sense that, at the root, we don't need to worry, we will always be here? I think the underlying sense is there. For some, eliminating racism is life and death. a question of survival, being seen as opposed to being invisible. For others, this is an interesting intellectual exercise from which we can be basically removed. 5. Making decisions for everyone. White privilege is the ability to make decisions that affect everyone without taking others into account.
Oh, did you hear that? The ability to make decisions without taking everyone or others into account.
This occurs at every level, from intellectual to individual. The following story could look simply like an oversight. Oops, I forgot to ask other people what they thought. However, it is typical behavior for white women who want women of color to join them in their endeavors.
Let's pay attention to this.
During a visit with an out-of-town friend minus another white woman and a librarian, we began to plan a conference for librarians on racism that we named Librarians as Colleagues, working together across racial lines. We talked and talked, making notes of good exercises to include videos to use, materials that might prove helpful. It was absolutely clear that we needed a diverse committee to work with me, the facilitator, and we created one that would include all voices: 2 white women, 1 Jewish, a Latina, a Chinese American woman, straight women and lesbians, and several African Americans. By the end of our conversation, I was extremely excited and couldn't wait to contact the women on the planning committee. At the first meeting with these women, during the introductions, I talked about my 25-year history of working on issues of racism and particularly my own work on what it means to be white and Southern. Then I presented what my friend and I had thought up as the plan for the conference, and all of us talked about the particulars. In other words, I presented my credentials as a good white person and then proceeded to create a conference that was exactly what my friend and I had planned without any input from people of color.
Well, at least you noticed. I mean, after the fact and well beyond the pale, you probably did it without. Look, what is the need to explain your position on black people? Do they do that? I don't know. Am I crazy, or do I see this generally? I mean, if they get in our orbit close about us, they'll start to talk about what they've done for black people. They'll begin to relate to us how they, how their interaction with black people. They'll ask us something related to what they may think is an issue black people may be interested in. But in this setting, when you're in a group setting, it is usually the norm, if it involves anything racial, that the first thing they do is start explaining themselves. Why do you need to explain yourself? You're superior, right? Superior people don't explain themselves, do they? I mean, superior people don't go out of existence. Superior people can't be replaced. Superior people don't have to make laws to maintain their superiority. Their superiority by their very existence and nature. And so it seems to me that this privilege, so closely associated with white supremacy, is an exposed nerve. It exposes. They got the nerve to assert that they're superior, when in fact, the reverse, the opposite might be true. I mean, I don't know. A person that continually asserts how great they are may not be too great. I don't know. I'm going to continue, folks. This is the Doug Rice Show, brought to you by Twit. We are examining Understanding White Privilege, and this is written by Frances E. Kendall, a white woman. So I've got a female narrator narrating this document. It is available to you. All you have to do is ask, and I will send it to you. Very interesting information, and I like to get the thoughts of the oppressor. You have to understand, and you'll glean from what we read secrets and things hidden that we may not have meant to have seen. Who knows? So let's continue with this, and thanks for tuning into the show.
A couple of weeks later, at our second meeting, the women of color pointed out that I had fallen into the classic trap of white women, the come be part of what we're doing syndrome. If you truly want us to work with you to create a conference, we will. But it means starting over and building a plan together. If you want us to enter the planning process in the middle and add our ideas to yours, we're not interested.
Oh, whoa. I believe that was delivered with expert precision. Thank you, sisters.
White people don't have to listen. Being white enables me to decide whether I am going to listen to others, to hear them, or neither. As one of those in what Lisa Del Pitt calls the culture of power, I also silence others without intending to or even being aware of it. For example, a colleague of mine, an African American woman, attended a conference on the process of dialogue. Of the 45 people there, she was one of 4 who were not white. The whites were of the intellectual elite, highly educated, bright, and, for the most part, liberal people.
Those are the worst.
As the meeting unfolded, it became increasingly clear that, if the women of color didn't mention race, no one would.
You know that uncomfortable silence you get when you're around too many of them and they notice that you're too few in number? You know, you don't have to wonder. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You ever been in that circumstance? I know you have, you know? And it's a bit uncomfortable. And I like what she said, you know. Yeah, some of them just get so uncomfortable they don't want to mention it. You listen, folks, this isn't our country. This is not us. This is not for Negroes. She's proving it.
The white people were not conscious enough to the fact that race minus their race minus was an integral aspect of every conversation they were having. When the women of color did insert the issue into the dialogue, the white people felt accused of being racist. In this instance, silencing took place when the planners were not clear that race was present at the conference even if no people of color attended. The white participants didn't include the reality of others in their plan, and, when the issue was raised by my colleague, she was made to feel that she was the one who was causing trouble.
Wow. You understand that there is an ever-present condition. There's an ever-present condition with these individuals, and it's an obsession with their history regarding Negroes and other indigenous people. And everywhere they go, everywhere they have forced their presence upon indigenous people, they always look at those people that usually have been conquered with the side eye of suspicion, as if it is those people that the danger comes from. Very interesting dynamic. You know, when you set your lily white asses in the middle of black people and say that is where you belong, this is our property. Don't be surprised if those people, the ones that you've allowed to remain living, constantly, are around you and making you feel ungoddamn comfortable. It's ridiculous. This is a condition the entire globe is suffering and now pushing back against. The colonialistic implant of European Jews and converts is an exercise in white privilege. They feel entitled, based on their skin color, to possess the land, based on their whiteness alone, not their Judaism, not their Khazarianism, not their Ukrainianism, but their whiteness. This is a race war. And the race war is predicated on white privilege. And that privilege is being asserted and pushed back against simultaneously. It's very important that we look at all aspects of what they believe regarding white privilege, because we know what we know. All right, let's continue on with the show. Let's see what she got to say.
6 in her article, The Silenced Dialogue, Power and Pedagogy in Educating Other People's Children, Harvard Education Review, Volume 58, Number 3, August 1988.
Oh my goodness, educating other folks' children. Let's hear this.
Del Pitt includes the profoundly disturbing comments of an African American teacher that illustrate how we silence dialogue without being aware of doing it or meaning to. When you're talking to white people, they still want it to be their way. You can try to talk.
Oh, look, hold up. Y'all need to hear that again. What did she say? Come on.
When you're talking to white people, they still want it to be their way. You can try to talk to them and give them examples, but they're so headstrong. They think they know what's best for everybody, for everybody's children.
Now that takes into focus Ron DeSantis. Let me give you a little background. Ron DeSantis, the praying mantis, has determined that he does not want certain, children who are confused about their gender identity to be given the opportunity to do what they want to about it. And I say, do what you want, that's your child. But when he was pressed about his own child in a press conference and whether or not if their child might be gender confused and what he would do in that situation, you know what he said? That's between me and my wife, and we will determine what is best for our child, while you simultaneously determine what's best for others. This is white privilege. This is whiteness. It's white supremacy. And we know where it all comes from. All right, let's continue. Very interesting.
Review, Volume 58, Number 3, August 1988. Del Pitt includes the profoundly disturbing comments of an African-American teacher that illustrate how we silence dialogue without being aware of doing it or meaning to.
Yeah, we'll go over it again.
When you're talking to white people, they still want it to be their way. You can try to talk to them and give them examples, but they're so headstrong. They think they know what's best for everybody, for everybody's children. They won't listen. White folks are going to do what they want to do anyway.
Oh, what did you say, dear? Say it again.
White folks are going to do what they want to do anyway. It's really hard. They just don't listen well. No, they listen, but they don't hear, minus you know how your mama used to say you listen to the radio, but you hear your mother? Well, they don't hear me. So I just try to shut them out so I can hold my temper. You can only beat your head against a brick wall for so long before you draw blood. If I try to stop arguing with them, I can't help myself from getting angry. Then I end up walking around praying all day, please Lord, remove the bile I feel for those people so I can sleep tonight.
So she's quoting the book, and I will go back up to it. I believe it's up here somewhere. She's quoting a book, and it's Dahlia, I think her name was, right? That's right. Her name was Dahlia. She's quoting that book from her. So she's giving the narrative and that what they do when you try to discuss. But what I want to really point out to is the spirituality of Negroes. I want to really point that out. I want you to understand this is what differentiates us from them. This is what differentiates all Negroes from other tribes. This is why we are set apart. Now, look, everybody got grandma. Everybody got, the women and the men of old that we know. They are the most spiritually minded, spiritually connected beings on the entire planet, and always ready to forgive is a Negro. Always ready to forgive, no matter what they do to us. It's just interesting as she quotes what Delphitt, that's her name, Miss Delphitt says, her interactions with white people and her conclusions, and then what she does to recover is indicative of what Negroes do globally. We are the most spiritually connected people on the planet, and that's just that. Now, let's continue.
Please, Lord, remove the bile I feel for those people so I can sleep tonight. It's funny, but it can become a cancer, a sore. Pages 280 to 281, as Del Pitt says, these are not the sentiments of one isolated person who teaches in a particularly racist school. The feelings are representative of a vast number of people of color as they interact with white people on a daily basis. The saddest element is that the individuals that the Black and American Indian educators speak of are seldom aware that the dialogue has been silenced. Most likely the white educators believe their colleagues of color did, in the end, agree with their logic. After all, they stopped disagreeing, didn't they? Page 281, White. Privilege allows us not to see race in ourselves and to be angry at those who do. I was asked to address a meeting of white women and women of color called together to create strategies for addressing social justice issues. Each of the women had been working for years in her own community on a range of issues from healthcare to school reform. As I spoke about the work that is required for white women and women of color to collaborate authentically, the white women became nervous and then resistant. Why was race always such an issue for women of color? What did I mean when I said it was essential for white women to be conscious of how being of their race affects every hour of their lives, just as women of color are? They were all professionals, some said. Why did it matter what color they were? The silencing of dialogue here occurred because the white women didn't see the race of the women in the room as an issue.
And they never do. White people don't see the race they created as an issue. White people don't see the race construct created by their descendants or by their progeny or created by their ancestors. Thank you. For God's sake, man, you created this racist system of white, black, skin class, caste system. Kiss my black ass. It's you. It's all you, and it always has been you. You don't want to pay attention to race when that attention may equal the playing field. That's the real issue. And when it's brought up in a public forum, why must they always be so goddamned uncomfortable? You're uncomfortable, are you? That's your problem. You got a problem. This is the reason we as Negroes must remain as separate and apart as humanly possible. First and foremost, we can't learn anything from these people. They're confused. I said it before, I'll say it again. These are the youngest minds on the planet making the most goddamned problems. White privilege is right up there with white supremacy. And it's a constant. It's a churning cesspool of caucasity. And it's in our face, bombarding us every day until we relent, till we give up. Well, I'm not giving up. That's the reason I do this. And I hope you share this live. You find out all of the things hidden, all of the hidden attitudes, all of the things that they hold dear that promotes and continues this kind of activity. All right, let's continue ourselves.
It did not occur to them that their daily experience was different from that of the African Americans, Latinos, and Asian Americans in the room. Had I not been asked to raise the issue, the possibility of doing so would have been left to the women of color, as it usually is. Believing that race is NMI, not my issue, and being members of one or more groups that also experience systemic discrimination, we use the privilege of emotionally and psychologically removing ourselves from the white group, which we see as composed either of demonically racist people who spout epithets and wear Ku Klux Klan robes, or white, straight, healthy males.
Yeah, they do not think of white supremacist, white supremism, if you will, as attached to anything other than what their framed ideology of what it is. So if you try to apply the exercise of their white supremacy and point it out, they'll effectively try to tell you, hey, I'm not wearing Klan robes. Their idea of what white supremacy is and white privilege, when it's exercised within them, is totally removed from the reality, totally removed. And that's what she's saying here in this instance.
For those of us who are white and are also disabled, gay, lesbian, or straight women, our experience of being excluded from the mainstream hides from us to the fact that we still benefit from our skin color. By seeing ourselves as removed in some way from the privileged group, we may be all the more deaf to our silencing of people of color. 7. Discounting people of color as white people. We have.
All right, whoa. So when you're hearing those numbers, those were the different sections. So I wanted you to know that.
The privilege and ability to discount the worth of an individual of color, his or her comments and behavior, and to alter his or her future based on our assessments. One of the most frightening aspects of this privilege is that we are able to do enormous damage with a glib or offhand comment such as, "I just don't think she's a good fit for our organization." Promotions have been denied on the basis of such comments. There are many ways in which our comments are given inflated worth because of the privilege we hold. For example, seeing those most affected by racism as wounded or victims and somehow, then, as defective. Identifying a member of an oppressed group as wounded is patronizing, particularly when done by someone with privilege. Mishearing the comments of people of color so that their words are less important, not understood or fully appreciated, and thereby heightening our sense of superiority.
I gotta tell you, folks, this is the reason I commonly stay the fuck out of these folks' faces, and I'm on one today, because this is the sentiment that we have to deal with, and as black men, I mean, this is really taken from a female perspective, as it's written by a female, but as black men going through this exercise of surviving caucasity as we move through the terrain in our daily lives, it is a sheer nightmare. You have no idea what these people do. And they do it right in front of our black asses too. You have no idea. It's amazing. It's amazing what we do, what we go through, what we endure.
Rephrasing or translating for others, as if they cannot speak for themselves, without appearing rude to others like us. Being allowed, by others like us, to take up most of the airtime without saying much of substance. Suggesting that people of color need to lighten up, not to take things so seriously.
Oh, when I hear them tell me that, you lighten up, what are you trying to instruct me? You know what I mean? They are so far removed from reality. Look, folks, here's the reason I do what I do. These individuals are so far removed from reality, okay? They are reality-less, if that could be a word. They are devoid of the actual, okay? And for the most part, I'm looking at white privilege as some kind of ether that they hang in to get high, you know? And if they're not high and they're a little bit irritable, if nobody is acquiescing to their white privilege, then there's pushback from them. This is a very, very well done document. And I do believe it's an honest assessment of the situation. Let's continue.
Saying or implying that, as a woman, or gay person, or a working class person, and so on, you know what the person of color is going through. I know just how you feel. When the children in the playground made fun of me because I was fat, I am not suggesting that race is the only cause of pain and discrimination. I am pointing out one of the ways in which white people suggest that someone else's experience can't be any worse than what we ourselves have experienced or can understand. Asking why people of color always focus on the negative, as if life can't be that bad. A similar way of discounting someone's experience is to say, you always focus on race.
Here we go.
I remember at 2 meetings.
Pause.
Last year, commenting, I know we have a way to go, but things have gotten better. Read, stop whining. What do you want from me, anyway? Didn't we fix everything in the 60s? Or I know what your reality is better than you do.
That, my friends, is a white touchstone of a response to Negro grievance. They love those lines, don't they? And if they don't say the lines, they at least think it. This is the reason, I'm telling you. This is the reason we don't belong here. This is the reason that we have to leave. It's not just that it's getting worse. It's not just that white supremacy is making a comeback. It's not just that the new neo-Nazi party is being led by Donald Trump. It's not that they want to kill us all, because they do. They want a whites-only country. They want a white utopia. And if left to their own devices, all they would do is cancel each other. Let me tell you something. These same beings were in Europe fighting amongst each other. Just a bunch of barbaric tribes, hordes. You know, white men scratching their hairy goddamned asses. You understand? And so a few of them wanted to own slaves without any bother from other white people, because they didn't want to own slaves. And that's why, and that's where we got this cacophony of caucasity called the United Snakes of America, hissing all throughout the land, just demanding that white privilege be applied to them. No, folks, we don't belong here. This ain't our place. This is not a place for Negro face. We have to leave. And I mean soon. All right, let's continue with the globe.
Seeing and keeping ourselves central, never marginal. For some years now, writers of color have been discussing the experience of living in the margins, while white people are living in the center. In one of her early books, Feminist Theory, From Margin to Center, Boston, South End Press, 1984, Bell Hooks defines it: to be in the margin is to be part of the whole, but outside the main body, living as we did, minus on the edge, minus we developed a particular way of seeing reality. We looked both from the outside in and from the inside out. We focused our attention on the center as well as on the margin. Seeing white as normal. Another element of this privilege is the ability to see white people as normal and all the others as different from normal. In describing heterosexuals' privilege, Alan G. Johnson also identifies a white privilege. They have the privilege of being able to assume acceptance as normal members of society, living in a world full of cultural aid images that confer a sense of legitimacy and social desirability. The Gender Knot, Unraveling Our Patriarchal Legacy, Philadelphia, Temple University Press, 1997, page 149. White people express this privilege in many ways. We use ourselves and our experiences as the referent for everyone. I'm not followed around in the store by a guard. What makes you think you are? We reinsert ourselves into the conversation if we feel it has drifted to focus on a person of color or an issue of others' race.
Oh, we reinsert ourselves into the conversation if it has drifted to focus on a person of color or an issue of others' race. Let me tell you something. They're terrified of the topic, and they should be. Because where it lands, they just don't want to be. They don't want to be in the area with which the facts land. They want to be elsewhere. That's where this is. That's what this is about. They created a system, a society that they know is wrong, and it's been going on for far too long. And let me tell you something, it's getting strong, but I don't know. I see a change afoot. We'll see.
I don't really think the issue is race as much as it is class. We bring a critical mass with us wherever we go. Even if I am the only white person in a room of university administrators of color, I know that most of the other administrators in the nation's schools look, relatively speaking, like me. We believe that we have an automatic right to be heard when we speak, because most leaders in most organizations look like us. Obviously, this privilege in particular is significantly altered, though not eliminated, by the intersections of socioeconomics, class, gender, sexual orientation, etc. We have, as a racial group, the privilege not to have to think before we speak.
Oh, what a powerful statement. White people as a racial class, they are endowed with the privilege of not having to think before they speak. And let me tell you something, folks. So many of them take advantage of that right, don't they? Wow.
If what we say is upsetting to others, our thoughtlessness, rudeness, anger, and so on, are attributed to us as individuals rather than as members of our race, as is the case for others. I can't believe Bill was such a jerk in the meeting today, as opposed to, Latinos are so passionate, they just don't think before they speak.
Yeah, notice how they class everything that they find objectionable to race, but when they find something objectionable amongst their own, they classify it only according to that person. You understand the cross that we're in? Do you not get what's happening and what you are amongst? Let's go.
We use the pain and experience of being deprived in our lives to keep us central and lessen our responsibility for the privileges we receive as white people. The pain and sense of being less than, often based on reality, may emanate both from our personal life experiences, minus my father died when I was 4, minus, and our membership in groups from which privileges are systematically withheld, minus being poor or Jewish or gay or deaf. In our minds, this sense of struggling somehow lessens or removes our responsibility for our receiving or colluding in systematic white privilege. For example, I often hear, I don't have white privilege because I'm working class. White working class people do not have the same socioeconomic privileges as white upper middle class people. But, while class privileges are being withheld from them, they are given the same skin color privileges.
Somebody send that as a sticky note to every blue collar white man and white woman in the country, because they have that same drivel come out their mouth that they do not have white privilege. Well, let me tell you something, you do.
We shift the focus back to us, even when the conversation is not about us.
Oh, I want that again. I want that again. What do y'all do?
We shift the focus back to us, even when the conversation is not about us. A classic example of this is white women crying during conversations about racism and women of color having to put their pain aside to help the white women who are crying.
Okay, folks. Can you picture it? Can you imagine? I mean, listen to me. I have never seen individuals so quick to cry in my whole life. Fractured, just, fragile, snowflake-like individuals that, based on the pain of others, will shed a goddamned tear. And I do remember seeing so many sisters comfort these creatures as they cry over your circumstances. Let's continue.
African Americans and gays and lesbians, in particular, are expected to take responsibility for other people's responses to and discomfort with them. We use our white privilege to define the parameters of appropriate conversation and communication, keeping our culture, manners, and language central by requesting a safe place to talk about race and racism.
So, well, what you need a safe place to talk about race? Yeah, I'm sure you do. The things that you must say amongst yourselves about black people. Oh my goodness, to be a fly in the wall.
This is often translated as being safe from hearing the anger and pain of people of color, as well as being able to say racist things without being held accountable for them. Establishing the rules for standard English and holding others to our rules. 9. Setting up informal rules for communicating in the organizations, and then failing to share those rules with people who are different from us. Creating institutions that run by our culture's rules, but acting as if the rules are universally held, such as what time meetings start, how people address one another, the appropriate language to use. If history is white, the privilege of writing and teaching history only from the perspective of the colonizer has such profound implications that they are difficult to fathom. As white people, we carry the stories we were taught as the truths, often failing to question those truths and discrediting those who do. There are many embedded privileges here. We are able to live in the absence of historical context. It is as if we are not forgetting our history, but acting as if it never happened.
Oh my goodness. Okay, she's warming up to me now. I'm getting, I don't know. Now she's telling a little too much truth. Get it, girl.
Or, if it did, it has nothing to do with us today. For most of us who are white, our picture of the United States, both past and present, is sanitized to leave out or downplay any atrocities we might have committed.
Well, now, I think that deserves a replay. Yes, I do. I'm just going to go ahead and do that one more time.
For most of us who are white, our picture of the United States, both past and present, is sanitized to leave out or downplay any atrocities we might have committed.
And they live that lie so well. We see these clowns at these rallies, these Klan rallies held by Donald Trump, holding up flags. When I look at an American flag now, what I'm looking at is a racist. It might as well just be a swastika. You know, the new nationalism is nothing more than white supremacy wrapped in a flag.
Our Disneyland version of history is that our white ancestors came here, had a hard time traveling west, finally conquered those terrible savages, and settled our country, just as we were supposed to do minus manifest destiny.
Now, manifest destiny, for those of you that don't know, you might want to take a pause for the cause and listen to the show, okay? Manifest destiny, okay? Manifest destiny, very, very simple. They have a document that they've written, a document which ascribes this continent and any other continent they might set their little feet on as something that they are entitled to through some sort of ethereal interplay regarding the God they worship and what they say, who knows? But it is a document that you can read if you truly feel the need. Manifest destiny. It is what they use to establish and predicate the reasons that they do the things that they do. Manifest destiny. It is their destiny to enslave Negroes. It is their destiny to own everything. It's their destiny to be as white as a sheet, but claim land in the Middle East where brown people are, you know, that's where they live. So I don't understand. So this manifest destiny is something that plays current, constant throughout their history. All of these European descendants think they have a destiny. Now, who put that thought in their mind? That's the real question, because they seem hell-bent on obtaining everything. They want it all. And you know, a person that wants everything usually has nothing. They're empty. And I tend to think that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with these beings who assert white privilege. The whole concept of whiteness is an abhorrent lie. It's vile. And yet they cling to it with every fiber of their weakened being. All right, I will continue on so we can continue seeing what we're seeing.
We are taught that we are the only ones in the picture. If there were others, they obviously weren't worth mentioning. An example of this is the white crosses at the Little Bighorn battlefield indicating where white men died, as if no indigenous people had been killed there. We are able to grow up without our racial supremacies being questioned. It is so taken for granted, such a foundation of all that we know, that we are able to be unconscious of it even though it permeates every aspect of our lives. Charles W. Mills describes this phenomenon in his book, The Racial Contract, Ithaca, Cornell University Press, 1997. White misunderstanding, misrepresentation, evasion, and self-deception on matters related to race are psychically required for conquest, colonization, and enslavement. And these phenomena are in no way accidental, but prescribed by the terms of the racial contract, which requires a certain schedule of structured blindness and opacities in order to establish and maintain the white polity. Page 19, italics his, while we are deprived of the skills of critical thinking by being given such a rudimentary.
No, I'm going to stop there. No, I like that because I want that to be understood. So listen, this gentleman, Mr. Mills, describes this phenomenon. He describes this: white misunderstanding, misrepresentation, evasion, and self-deceptions on matters related to race are, this is real important, they are physically required for conquest. I want you to see how well laid their plans are and how well they understand what they do. They are physically required for conquest, colonization, and enslavement. And these phenomena are in no way accidental, but prescribed by the terms of the racial contract. Now, what racial contract? Somebody look up racial contract, see if we can find that sucker, which requires a certain schedule of structured blindness and opacities in order to establish and maintain the white polity, the white supremacy, the white politics. Folks, if you don't understand where you are as a Negro, if you don't understand in this country, this is not where we belong, if you don't understand the second Exodus is soon to come, I just don't know what I can do. If it's not obvious, there are two types of Negroes now, just two. There are those awoke and those asleep. That's it. There are those that are thoroughly entrenched into the machinations of this country and its leanings toward white supremacy, blindly supporting the very system that suppresses them. And then there are those that have come awake as to the lies that have been told for so long in this country, the Negroes and their origins and personage. And we are set on a path out of this place, and soon. As you can see, the table is being set for the meal of destruction, and it won't be long. It will not be long. I hope your bags are packed, because white privilege is just the beginning. White supremacy, it comes after that, and white genocide, white rage, white murder will shortly thereafter follow. It is something that they have done for centuries. They've done this repetitive, cyclic type mass murder, this need to satiate their violence. This is what they are. This is who they are. And when they are not like that, they are pretending. You watch yourselves, Negroes. The turn of the worm could happen at any moment. All right, let's continue. I just went on a rant. What do you want?
View of our heritage. Our ignorance is not held against us. We are taught little complicated history to have to sort through, think about, question, and so we have few opportunities to learn to grapple with complexities. We end up with simplistic sentiments like America minus love it or leave it because we have only been taught fragments of information. We're told that George Washington couldn't tell a lie, but we aren't told that he owned African people who were enslaved, or that he most likely has descendants by those slaves. We don't often have to wrestle with the fact that one of the biggest fights in framing the Constitution was over maintaining slavery.
Oh, here we go, folks.
We have the privilege of determining how and if historical characters and events will be remembered. From the Alamo to the Filipino-American War to the Japanese internment to Vietnam to 10 training the assassins at Fort Benning, Georgia, who killed nuns and priests in El Salvador, we retain an extremely tight hold on what is and is not admitted and how
Pause.
Information is presented. We do this as a culture, and we do it as individuals. We control what others know about their own histories by presenting only parts of a story.
Whoa! Did you hear that, folks? Did you hear that admittance? I need you to understand what white privilege is. This is white privilege. This is white privilege, the privilege to do this.
We control what others know about their own histories by presenting only parts of a story.
They did that to Negroes, and I don't believe they even presented part of the story. But the story is being told.
Because we all go to the same schools, if you will, everyone, regardless of color, is told the white story. Japanese Americans are told that their family's interment was purely a safety precaution, just as white children are. American Indian students see Walt Disney's Davy Crockett alongside their white schoolmates, learning that their great-grandmothers were squaws, and their ancestors were savages. We all learn the tomahawk chop during baseball season. None of us sees a whole picture or our nation that includes the vast contributions of those who are not white. All of us are given a skewed picture of reality. This is part of what Charles Mills is writing about in The Racial Contract.
Found it!
We are able, almost always, to forget that everything that happens in our lives occurs in the context of the supremacy of whiteness. We are admitted to college, hired for jobs, given or denied loans, cared for by the medical profession, and we walk down the street as white people, always in the context of white dominance. In other words, part of the reason that doors open for us is our unearned racial privilege. But we act and often believe that we have earned everything we get.
Okay, she's won me over. I am a fan, Miss Kendall. Speak it. I want you to speak it again. What did you say?
But we act and often believe that we have earned everything we get. We then generalize from our perceived experience of deserving the opportunities we receive to thinking that, if a person of color doesn't get a job or a loan, it's because she or he didn't earn it. We are able to delude ourselves into thinking that people of all colors come to the table having been dealt the same hand of cards.
Did you hear it?
We act as if there are no remnants of slavery that affect African Americans today, that the Japanese didn't have to give up their land, their homes, and businesses, or that the Latinos weren't brought back into what had been their country to do stoop labor. We can disconnect ourselves from any reality of people of color that makes us uncomfortable, because our privilege allows us to believe that people basically get what they deserve, or we feel helpless to do anything about another group's pain. So we have kind, good people who, because of race and class privilege, are so removed that they don't have to see or experience others.
Wow.
Without that personal experience, they have no understanding of or motivation to address others' lives.
And they have no interest in the lives of others. The disinterest of white people in this country, in the lives of people that are not white, is beyond the pale. It's the reason their society is imploding. You have to understand, these are myopic people, and quite frankly, any individual that turns the conversation about themselves is a goddamned narcissist. So what we are faced with are watered down versions of people. That's right. RH negative, genetically recessive individuals, blonde hair, blue-eyed individuals who somehow consider themselves superior, with every kind of disease imaginable that emaciates entire populations. These superior people have deluded themselves and have put upon the rest of the world the ideation that being white is superior, and that is from which their privilege stems. See, I try to go just beyond the privilege, and let's get to the root cause of why it exists in the first place.
Inclusion and collateral. We have the privilege of being able to determine inclusion or exclusion of ourselves and others in a group. We can include or exclude at our whim. She would be great here, but her research doesn't focus enough on Latin America, even though she's a Latina. And, moments later, she would add a lot to our department, but she's just so Chicana. I have the ability as a white woman to move back into my gender and commiserate with other women about men if I don't want to be aligned with other whites. We are able to slip in and out of conversations about race without being questioned about our loyalty, or called an Oreo, or a banana, or a coconut.
Oh, that's a good point.
11. We can speak up about racism without being seen as self-serving. In fact, we can even see ourselves as good at standing up for others and mentally pat ourselves on the back. We expect and often receive appreciation for showing up at their functions, the multicultural fair, the NAACP annual fundraising event, the Asian Women Warriors Awards celebration, as if they don't really pertain to us. If we aren't thanked profusely by people of color, we give up because we feel unappreciated. We have the privilege of having our race serve as a financial asset for us. We are beneficiaries of a system that was set up by people like us, for people like us, so that we can control the critical financial aspects of our lives more than people of color are able to.
Oh, did you hear that? Brothers and sisters. Go ahead, woman.
There is much research that shows that race, when isolated as a variable, overrides the variables.
I don't know why it does this, but it does. It considers it a very long pause. Let me
Of
start.
class and gender
There
in
we go.
impacting institutions' financial decisions. I am able to count on my race as a financial asset if I have nothing else to offer as collateral. For example, as a white person, I am far more likely to have access to expensive medical procedures, particularly pertaining to heart disease, than people of color. Statistically, the likelihood is that I will pay less for a new car than a black woman will.
Wow.
Examples of this element of white privilege are plentiful. For a more in-depth discussion of whiteness as financial collateral, see Cheryl I. Harris's article, Whiteness as Property, Harvard Law Review, 1993, Volume 106. Ongoing excavation. We cannot allow our fear of anger to deflect us nor seduce us into settling for anything less than the hard work of excavating honesty. Audre Lorde, Sister Outsider, Freedom, California, The Crossing Press, 1984, page 128. For those of us who are deeply committed to social justice work, the purposeful crafting of systemic supremacy of whiteness is one of the most difficult and painful realities to hold. It would be more comfortable to believe that racism somehow magically sprang full-blown without our having had anything to do with it. We would rather remain unconscious of decisions that reinforce white privilege that are made by a few on behalf of all white people. However, if we are truly to understand the racial context of the 21st century, we have to grapple with our dogged unwillingness to understand the patterns of discrimination for what they are. We must ask how we participate in not seeing the experiences of people of color that are so very different from white people's. We should question our resoluteness to identify class rather than race as the primary determinant of opportunity and experience, particularly when there is so much evidence to the contrary. In short, white people can continue to use unearned privilege to remain ignorant, or we can determine to put aside our opacities in order to see clearly and live differently. As Harvey Cox said in The Secular City, not to decide is to decide.
And there we have it, folks. The full reading, the full scope of Mrs. Frances Kendall and understanding white privilege. And I do, again, want to give her full credit, give her a nice full page viewing of her name and the title. She worked so hard in putting together for all of us. I hope, I pray that you enjoyed this particular offering today. My name is Doug Rice, brought to you by Twid. Twidwear, as you can see, it's the epitome of quality. This stuff is quality stuff. I'm just going to tell you. I've yet to get a pair of shoes and, some other stuff I might be able to use, but I'm waiting for my hat. I can't wait for that. All right, folks, I hope we learned something today. She started off rocky. Felt like I might hear a little bit of an excuse, a little codifying, a little mitigation, a little marginalization, and then she let the floodgates of admittance open. And we were blessed by her stark honesty. I only hope that she survives. I only hope that she comes with Negroes if she wants to live. I'm gonna make that a shirt, folks. Come with Negroes if you want to live. All right, that's it for me. I hope you had a good. I hope you had a good time. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of my rhyme. We're gonna be back tomorrow with something else and something offer you. And I appreciate it. Really, really do. My name again is Doug Rice. This is the Doug Rice Show, brought to you by Twidwear. Twidwear is the epitome of the best in sportswear and sports gear, but also skincare. I'll be getting that skincare. Remember, too, folks, go to DougRice.com. At some point, it will be working. It will be up. It will be actually linked to the Doug Rice Show. I just love that thing. I don't know. All right, I'm done, folks. It seems I got to run, folks. I'm done telling all the jokes. And, hey, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. Remember, if you're out there and you are in public places, do me a favor, get that goddamn grin off your faces. Yeah, I did say it. That's what I do. Y'all have a good morning. Like, subscribe, and share, and all that good stuff. Would you do that for me? Do that for me. Gotta go.